Hello and good morning. Welcome to Let's Talk About Us. I'm Zach, and today we are covering a bit of a big drop, actually. The Committee for the Responsible Federal Budget has released an analysis of both Harris and Trump's economic plans. I have a couple of articles related to this, but I wanted to start with the actual source itself. This is directly from crfb.org. Let's read. The fiscal impact of the Harris and Trump campaign plans. The next president will face significant fiscal challenges upon taking office, including record debt levels, large structural deficits, surging interest payments, and the looming insolvency of critical trust fund programs. Our large and growing national debt threatens to slow economic growth, boost interest rates and payments, weaken national security, constrain policy choices, and increase the risk of an eventual fiscal crisis. However, neither major candidate running in the 2024 presidential election has put forward a plan to address this rising debt burden. In fact, our comprehensive analysis of the candidates' tax and spending plans finds that both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump would likely further increase deficits and debt above levels projected under current law. Under our central estimate, Vice President Harris's plan would increase the debt by $3.50 trillion through 2035, while President Trump's plan would increase the debt by $7.50 trillion. Okay, so we're starting from 2026 to 2035. Is that just because of how long it takes for an economic plan to start, making impacts on the economy? Shouldn't it be 2025, right? That's probably why. It's probably why, because the laws regarding the economy probably take longer to take effect, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an economist. These estimates come with a wide range of uncertainty, reflecting both different interpretations and estimations of the policies. Under our low and high cost estimates, we estimate Vice President Harris's plan could have no significant fiscal impact or increase debt by $8.10 trillion through 2035, while President Trump's plan could increase debt by between $1.45 and $15.15 trillion. Our analysis will be updated if additional policies are introduced. Okay, so what this paragraph has just told me is that either when it comes to the debt, when it comes to the economy, we can choose to go wildly into debt or choose the candidate that wants to do a coin flip. All right. I mean, I guess it's better to go with the coin flip because at least it's not a guaranteed outcome. Jesus Christ. U.S. Budget Watch 2024 is a project of the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budget designed to educate the public on fiscal impact of the presidential candidates' proposals and platforms. Throughout the election, we will issue policy explainers, fact checks, budget scores, and other analyses. We do not support or oppose any candidate for public office. Okay. So here we have the Harris plan. If you guys know anything about economy, you are more than welcome to sit here on pause and read it over if you want. And here's the Trump plan. Okay, so I'm actually not going to read this whole thing. It's way bigger than I first thought. And I still have 2 articles to get through to kind of get their takes on it. But you can find this whole analysis. It's probably a good 30 to 50 pages worth of stuff. If you start including the graphs and whatnot. You can find it at crfb.org, and it's right there at the front of their page. But let's see what the Associated Press thought of it. So, Associated Press has a lean left rating, although it does have a center rating by Adfontes Media, and 2 high factuality ratings. It is independently owned. New analysis suggests national debt could increase under Harris, but it would surge under Trump. Yeah, okay. Yeah. By Josh Boak. No one is likely to be happy with the projected higher deficits laid out in a new analysis of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's economic plans. True, I am not happy right now. The analysis released Monday by the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget suggests a Harris presidency could increase a literal coin flip, you guys, national debt over 10 years by 3.5 trillion. That even though the vice president's campaign insists her proposed investments in the middle class and housing would be fully offset by higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy, her campaign policy guide states that Harris is committed to fiscal responsibility, making investments that will support our economy while paying for them and reducing the deficit at the same time. Okay. The same analysis says former President Trump's ideas could heap another 7.5 trillion onto the debt and possibly as much as 15.2 trillion. That's even though he suggests growth would be so strong under his watch that no one would need to worry about deficits. The 34-page report released by the Fiscal Watchdog Group puts a spotlight on the issue of government borrowing that will confront the winner of November's election. Total federal debt held by the public now tops 28 trillion. And is expected to keep climbing as revenues can't keep up with the growing costs of Social Security, Medicare, and other programs. The analysis noted that the expense of servicing that debt in dollar terms has eclipsed the cost of defending our nation or providing health care to elderly Americans. You know what? I appreciate Associated Press for posting this, because this is just an ugly truth that I think a lot of us have known for a long time. If you've been paying attention to the debt, it's just been... This is very good writing, and I appreciate it. What was this guy's name? Josh Boak. Thank you, Josh Boak. Drawing on the candidates' speeches, campaign documents, and social media posts, the analysis warns bluntly, debt would continue to grow faster than the economy under either candidate's plans, and in most scenarios would grow faster and higher than under current law. Neither candidate has meaningfully stressed budget deficit reduction in their pitch to voters, but multiple analyses show a clear difference of Harris being much more fiscally responsible than Trump. Okay. Harvard University professor Jason Furman, who was the top economist in the Obama White House, estimated in an opinion article for the Wall Street Journal that Harris's plan could cut deficits by 1.5 trillion or raise them by 1.5 trillion. Meanwhile, his estimates show that Trump's plans would increase the deficits by 5 trillion, though that figure does not include his plans to charge no taxes, non-overtime pay, and scrap the limit on deductions of state and local taxes. So this guy, Harvard University professor Jason Furman, he is a bit, I guess, more optimistic when it comes to both of their plans. Because if you remember, we looked at this plan, 3.5 on the low end for Harris, and then 8.10, and then 1.45 on the low end for Trump, and 15.15 on the high end. There are other estimates by the budget lab at Yale and the Penn Wharton budget model that also show Harris would be better at keeping the deficit in check. But what's important to point out here is even though they have these three groups listed, right, every single one is still telling us that both of them are going to be bad for our debt. Like, I'm sure that there is an economist out there who has written a much better piece on this, or like a way to fix the economy and the budget. But it's probably not a publicly... The optics are bad, you could say. In order to decrease our debt, I think America would have to do some things that Americans really don't want to do. So yeah, we'll see. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget Analysis estimates that Harris policy ideas could add 3.5 trillion, to the national debt through 2035. That conclusion depends on its treatment of how much various programs could cost. It forecasts that Harris would implement 4.6 trillion in tax reductions, including extensions of some of the expiring 2017 tax cuts that Trump signed into law, and tax breaks for parents, and no taxes on tips income for hospitality workers. Roughly 4 trillion in higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy would be insufficient to cover the total cost of her agenda and the additional interest on the debt that it could generate. All right. Still, the analysis notes that its numbers depend on various interpretations of what Harris has said. It's possible that Harris's agenda would add nothing to baseline deficits, but the report also said it might plausibly add as much as 8.1 trillion, to debt, what appears to be a worst case scenario. By contrast, Trump's ideas would likely add another 7.5 trillion to the debt. His 2.7 trillion in tariff revenues would be unable to cover 9.2 trillion dollars in tax cuts and additional expenditures such as 350 billion to secure the border and deport unauthorized immigrants. But the analysis includes other possibilities that show far higher deficits under Trump if his tariffs raised less money and there were higher costs for his mass deportations and tax breaks. The national debt could jump by 15.2 trillion. Oh yeah, his Trump's plan to deport what is the numbers he always says? He always says like 11 or 20, like somewhere between 11 and 20 million people. That's not going to be cheap. Regardless of whether or not it's moral or not, that's not going to be cheap. On the other hand, if the tariffs raised 4.3 trillion and there were no costs tied to deportations, Trump's plan would only increase the debt by 1.5 trillion over 10 years. I do like this little add in at the end. Like, on the other hand, if the tariffs raised 4.3 trillion and there were no costs tied to the deportations, so this is the La Land couple sentences at the end. I appreciate your sarcasm, Josh. All right. Now the last article, because this is a comparison news segment, is a right-leaning article. This is from the Daily Sabah. The Daily Sabah is a Turkey-based news organization. They have a right lean by media bias fact check. They have mixed factuality, and they are owned by the Turkavaz Media Group. Debt woes. Harris versus Trump. Economic plans could balloon deficits. I do find it interesting that there is a Turkish news company or agency covering U.S. politics. Neither side is expected to be pleased with the projected increased deficits outlined in the recent analysis of the economic plans proposed by Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. The analysis released Monday by the nonpartisan U.S. Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget suggests a Harris presidency could increase the national debt over 10 years by $3.5 trillion. That's even though the vice president's campaign insists her proposed investments in the middle class and housing would be fully offset by higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy. Her campaign policy guide states that Harris is committed to fiscal responsibility, making investments that will support our economy while paying for them and reducing the deficit at the same time. The same analysis says former President Trump's ideas could heap another $7.5 trillion onto the debt, and possibly as much as $15.2 trillion. That's even though he suggests growth would be so strong under his watch that no one would need to worry about deficits. The 34-page report released by the Fiscal Watchdog Group puts a spotlight on the issue of government borrowing that will confront the winner of November's election. Total federal debt held by the public news ops $28 billion and is expected to keep climbing, as revenues can't keep up with the growing costs of Social Security, Medicare, and other programs. Wait, total federal debt held by the public now tops $28 billion? I thought it was trillion. Hold on. So I'm wondering if this is referring to something else, because it specifically says total federal debt held by the public now tops $28 billion. But if you look up the total amount that the U.S. is in debt, it's like 35 point something trillion. So this must be like a specific number that they're referring to within that bigger debt. The analysis noted that the expense of servicing that debt in dollar terms has eclipsed the cost of defending our nation or providing health care to elderly Americans. Drawing on the candidates' speeches, campaigns, documents, and social media posts, the analysis bluntly warns debt would continue to grow faster. We've already read this. Oh, did a right-leaning source just copy the yeah. Okay. So a right-leaning source has decided to copy Associated Press, which I don't have a problem with. So you have Associated Press saying, hey, both these plans are they're gonna increase debt. You have a right-leaning source, the Daily Sabah, also claiming both of these potential presidents gonna increase the debt. We need an economist. Like we are 35 point something trillion dollars in debt. We need a president who either has an economic background that isn't based on a fucking fraud and defaming and a whole bunch of other like nasty backroom white collar crime bullshit. I mean, Kamala is great and all, but she's not an economist. Like, and I know she has advisors to her that are economists, but whether or not she's going to listen to him as president, I have no idea. I cannot see the future. This has been Let's Talk About Us. I'm Zach. I am not an economist. So take what you hear, my opinions, with a grain of salt. And then if you have the time, I strongly encourage you to read this. If I tried to read this though on camera, this video would be much, much longer. So I encourage you to go research for yourself. Anyway, you'll have a good rest of your day.